I'm Shri Kumar Poddar. Very happy to welcome all of you on behalf of International Service Society, Vaishnava Center for Enlightenment, and People Science Institute of India. And before we begin, I want to introduce this lovely young lady, Elisa Bush. She will do the invocation. Elisa.
Om Tat Sat Shri Narayana Tu Purushottama Guru Tu Siddha Buddha Tu Skanda Vinayaka Savita Pavaka Tu Brahmamasa Tu Yama Shakti Tu Ishu Pita Prabhu Tu Rudra Vishnu Tu Rama Krishna Tu Rahima Tao Tu Vasudeva Govishwarupa Tu Chidananda Hari Tu Advitiya Tu Akala Nirbhaya Atmalinga Shiva Tu Om Tat Sat Shri Narayana Tu Purushottama Guru Tu. I'm going to play the same tune on the violin.
It's my pleasure to invite Dr. Shripad Raju to say a few words about International Service Society, which is a humanitarian service of Vaishnava Center for Enlightenment. Dr. Raju.
Good evening. Thank you for that. I'm happy to present International Service Society, which is the humanitarian organ of Vaishnava Center for Enlightenment. Its evolution has been to provide services in an international setting. Issues of development, issues of natural disaster, and also issues of certain conflicts based on ethnic, religious nature, they have been part of our human history. So, as we begin to find solutions to each one of them, they are also interconnected. So International Service Society has taken a vision which includes all those elements. So it has been working with issues like drought, flood, and also certain other earthquake and other type of disaster situations. And annually we have a dinner where some of the activities of the society will be reported, in addition to other materials that we provide through our various publications. And it's a great opportunity for us to come together and have an exchange of our own ideas and feelings and visions in contemporary and in the futuristic sense, so that even micro and macro approaches to these problems have to be properly coordinated. So every one of us in our own individual personal life have an opportunity to contribute in our own way, in addition to an organized, whether it is based on charity or whether it is based on other educational type of approaches, to develop a solution and also develop certain awareness and positive attitudes to strengthen the capacities of people and organizations around the world. Unless we have that coordinated and comprehensive understanding and action, any one organization or any one person or a group will not be able to provide the needed support and also solutions for these problems. And I welcome all of you to have an opportunity to know a little more about the work of the International Service Society and Vaishnava Center. Thank you.
Tomorrow being working day, people ask me to keep the program fast moving so you can relax. We will not prolong it. So nice to see a lot of our donors and supporters and friends here. And I must tell you a little bit about the origin of International Service Society. Its original name was International Students Foundation, and it was created in response to an immigration crackdown on overseas students all across the country by an immigration director, commissioner of immigration in Washington, who felt that when a foreign student comes to the United States, he has to tell the consul general or ambassador that he has sufficient funds to pursue his studies in the United States. So they don't need to work during the summertime. Well, they have no idea that students sometimes don't even have enough money for 1 year and a lot less for 3 or 4 years. So this gentleman started sending their agents to every bus depot and every train station. And any person who looked like a foreigner, they were arrested and put in jail and asked to put up $2,000 cash bond, saying this cash bond is necessary to make sure that you show up for your hearing. And that was not possible on a weekend where this poor student going to get $2,000 in cash. Banks are closed on weekends, and they were forced to wait until their friends bail them out next Monday morning. I got a phone call from Detroit area that some 163 students were locked up by immigration in Detroit jails. Most of them were from India. This was the year when Nixon had told Henry Kissinger to tell the policy against India. So I contacted all the newspapers, the senators, the Foreign Relations Committee, the House Foreign Relations Committee, and gave these details. Then we said, what do we do with the students who have been denied summer work permit? So we formed this organization with the help of a retired state senator of Iowa, Senator William Plymouth. Some of you have met him. He used to visit here quite frequently. He's no more now. But he was a maverick. And we came up with a wonderful plan that we will offer hospitality in American homes to students for the summer so that this will save them some expenses. But not only this, we launched a nationwide campaign. And I did not know, but our PR agent told us that he will write editorials and send it to all the major newspapers and tell them to publish it. And over a dozen newspapers across the country published the story. And the tragedy was, while foreign students who were paying their own way in this country, they were being harassed, intimidated, locked up, and denied summer work permit. But State Department had a program to bring 5,000 students from Europe in the summer just to work here. They were not paying tuition, they were not bringing their money to spend here. They were on the contrary paid by US government. So, one of my friends who was in advertising business, I asked him, I'm going to put a quarter-page ad in New York Times on a Sunday, which has larger readership. So would you write an ad for us? He had a picture, a drawing of Statue of Liberty, with tears rolling down eyes, and we gave half a dozen cases of what was happening. The net result of this was that this one organization's national campaign had the immigration commissioner fired. The Detroit district director of immigration was fired. And I became a threat to the immigration officers. So if my phone call went on behalf of a student, his work permit was sanctioned. So for some years, we continued as International Students Foundation. And Senator Plymouth said, there are more problems than just the student problem, because we have more or less solved the student problem. How about we change the name to International Service Society and respond to other critical needs? So since for 43 years, International Service Society has done campaigns in practically all parts of the world. Darfur you might have heard of, Iraq, and Sri Lanka in response to tsunami, Thailand, Cambodia, Vietnam, Europe, India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, and we have got wonderful experience of working with reliable organizations in different parts. One of the conditions we have put to most of the local partners is we'll pay their local overhead expenses where they are working, but not their central office overhead expenses. So some organizations accept that and some don't. If they don't, then depending on our importance for that area, we may not give them funding. And we raise money. And that's our unique strength. We started raising funds 40 years ago, and we knew how to monitor the expenditure to make sure the funds really reach the beneficiaries. So one of the unique features of your contribution to International Service Society is we do not deduct any fundraising costs, neither do we deduct any overhead costs. On the contrary, if somebody gives us $250 or more, we match it from the trustees' contribution. So trustees pay all the expenses plus matching contribution. Then I hit upon another idea. I said, the organizations we work with, in India especially, there are a lot of rich people in India. They can give matching fund for a cause if they are interested, and will only fund those causes for which there is local support. So in the last several years, we have worked with Akar Charitable Trust, based in Bombay, but they work in Maharashtra, Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh, Bihar. And the condition is that whatever money we send them, they have to double it. So if somebody gives us even $10, that's doubled by them. If somebody gives us $251, we double it, and then they double. So 251 becomes 502, and 502 becomes 1004. So with very small base of donors, we are making a larger impact. Finally, I'll just tell you one story of Beed district in Maharashtra. Beed district had the highest number of farmer suicides. And during the Latur earthquake, which is neighboring to Beed district, I spent 5 days in that part and met Dr. Lohiya of Manavlok, who was doing phenomenal work for many, many years there. So we became good friends. I invited Dr. Lohiya and his wife to come to the United States at our expense of Vaishnava Center for Enlightenment, to go around the country, meeting groups across to raise money. And he was successful in raising almost $250,000 or more. And then he will come to Bombay and meet me, or I will go to his place. And he also does rainwater harvesting. And rainwater harvesting is one of the best solutions for drought as well as floods. So this particular organization contacted me in response to drought in Maharashtra. So when I first made the condition that they had to double everything everything that we contribute, he said, no, we cannot afford to do that. I said, you got rich people in India. You send an appeal and tell them that somebody is going to match it from abroad. You live in India, you should match it too. So after a month's negotiation, they agreed to my terms and conditions. And they did rainwater harvesting. I just recently got their detailed report. And what they have told me, that even though Beed has the highest number of farmer suicides because of drought, in their villages where they have worked and done rainwater harvesting, there was not one farmer suicide. Only a couple of days ago in the India news on television, we saw the tragedy of farmers in Beed district of Maharashtra. So they need more money, and I said, be happy to raise more money for you, but you got to find matching donors. So there are many such stories, and very often we don't get a chance to report this except on annual dinners. And so if you have friends who contribute money to other organizations, I would appreciate if you would consider telling them our story, and we'll be happy to send you literature. We have some literature outside. One very unique organization in India is People Science Institute. which was founded by Dr. Ravi Chopra. In 2007, right here in this building, Dr. Chopra received our International Service Society's Lifetime Achievement Award. And no, I take it back. Was it 2007? We did it in the Anna Community Center. And the booklet that you have outside is a very interesting story. It was a surprise to Dr. Chopra that we were going to give him an award. So I had his travel schedule. I contacted his wife. He's married an American lady from Massachusetts, really? Falls River? Fall River. So I said, I'm going to do this tribute to him, and I don't want him to find out. So I contacted his friends in this country, in all the cities he was going, and asked them to write a tribute piece. So I would not call that friend until he had passed through that town. And here I am asking his staff of People's Science Institute, his family members in the United States and India, to write a tribute for him. He has a daughter here, and he has a sister in Connecticut, is it really?
Yeah.
I invited them, and one of his brother-in-law was visiting from India. So I said, there's going to be a tribute dinner, but Ravi does not know, so you keep it secret, and you please come and attend. I will even pay your plane fare. So 3 of them came. And the question came, where am I going to put all these people up? So I had them stay at my house. But Ravi was also staying with me. So we were wondering how we were to keep it a secret. So I told those 3 people, you all sit in one room. Ravi is busy preparing his presentation in another room. And you will only meet him during the meal time. But then before the meal, I thought that would be a fiasco if we waited until meal time. So I said to Ravi, I have a surprise for you. So I took him to the room where these 3 people were there, his daughter, his sister, and his brother-in-law. The sister was ready with her camera, and as we opened the door, Ravi was shocked, saying, what you guys are doing here? Oh, they said, we heard you were going to give a presentation, so we came to hear you. So we have those fantastic pictures of a shocked Ravi. Then there was another trick I did. I can't recall the details, so I'll just cut it short. My wife is nodding her head. The booklet that you have had 2 editions, one with ads, one without ads. So what you have is without ads. And we did that booklet in such a way that the booklet with ad said, didn't say Lifetime Achievement Award, but this booklet said Lifetime Achievement Award. And therefore, first, when the program started, we gave the booklet with the ads, which did not say Lifetime Achievement Award. And then, after intermission, before Ravi spoke, we opened the new package and gave this booklet that you have in your hand. So, this way we managed to keep the secret intact with that much introduction about the International Service Society, and left out a lot of details in the interest of time. And we will start 15 minutes earlier than 6:45 with the salad. And while the salad is going on, I will invite again Dr. Raju to introduce Ravi Chopra.
Thank you again for this opportunity to introduce Dr. Ravi Chopra. I met Dr. Ravi Chopra during some of the, I call it turbulent times when Mrs. Indira Gandhi had declared emergency. And there was a movement here to draw attention to that event and mobilize support for democratic ideas. He was then a student at Hoboken, at the Stevens Institute of Technology. So he's trained in metallurgy. That is his specialty. But then I always tell him that trained in metallurgy, he got into the problems of the people. So the social and humanistic interest that he developed, and his approach of bringing science to the benefit of the people is one of the very, very important contributions. Because, as most of you know, we talk of big science and small science. Big science is always promoted by governments, research and so on, and big corporations. Small science means based on certain small non-profit charitable groups. That is very, very small. So the support for the development of science has been very heavily from these big organized institutions. Ordinary people need also the knowledge of science, knowledge of technology. So his vision of founding the People's Science Institute is one of the path-breaking approach to provide people based on their own experiments, based on their own observations of their environment and life and participation, generating the knowledge and feeding it back to their own programs of change. That is a very innovative way by which Ravi Chopra has been one of the unique scientists who has provided science based on this people's interests. His work, though focused on some regional parts of India, mainly in Himalayan range, but it has great implications and also demonstrations for other parts, other ecological parts, environmental situations. Yesterday, I was with one of our MSU professors who is doing research on water quality in Michigan. Then I sat as an observer as they were exchanging their findings and methods of tracing how water quality is affected by various agricultural and other type of operations, water flows, hydrological studies. So this kind of a work which affects the people is an important contribution which he has recognized, and it has been one of my great opportunity to know him I have visited his institute in Dehradun. The way he brings in his own colleagues and his straightforward approach, both in his conversation and also in his management, has a great impact on the people's participation. It is a great pleasure for me to introduce him to you so that you will have a direct experience of his approach and his style of management, his style of communicating to professional community as well as people who are adopting some of his findings and changing some of their own practices. And I look forward to hear from him along with you his great contributions. And Ravi Chopra will be here and you will see him. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Raju. Is Alisa still here? Alisa Bose? She left? Okay. She had brought a flower bouquet to present to Dr. Chopra, so maybe if we find the flower bouquet.
Like that.
So, Dr. Chopra.
Okay.
Dr. Chopra is not stranger to Lansing area people. This is his probably 7th or 8th visit. He used to come quite frequently during emergency in India. And we had formed a group called Indians for Democracy. So Dr. Chopra, you are on. And we are hoping to have a DVD made of his presentation by Mike Anderson and Brent Dreyfus. So we will have copies if you want to get one. Thank you. And I should mention that Jo Chopra, she has started a special school for children with special needs called Karuna Vihar in Dehradun. It's become internationally famous, and she produces a beautiful calendar which we sent to our donors of over $50 all across the world as a return gift. So if you've not been donating $50, if you do this year, then you'll get a very beautiful calendar. So without further ado, Dr. Chopra.
I have changed the title a little bit. I'm going to talk about climate change, the problems that it is creating in the Himalayan region, as well as issues of survival in the midst of climate change. I will do that by first showing you an event that took place 2 years ago, which was an indicator of the kind of problems we are up against. And then go back into talking about the Himalayas, the importance of the Himalayas, give you some evidence that climate change is taking place in the area, describe some of the impacts, and finally, what we are trying to do about adjusting to the changing climate. But before I do that, a little bit of advertisement. What is this People Science Institute? It was established about 27 years ago, and our main task is to try and help people overcome their poverty by using their resources in a productive, sustainable, and equitable manner. To do this, we undertake research activities, we train people, and we implement development projects. After you have done this kind of work for a while, then you also get involved with policy advocacy. We work all over India, but our focal areas are the Himalayan states of Uttarakhand and Himachal Pradesh, and currently one of the poorest parts of India, which is called Bundelkhand. There are 4 units at People Science Institute. The largest group is the Natural Resource Management Group, and it basically tries to get communities to manage their local natural resources so that their livelihood opportunities can improve. Some of the interesting work that we have done is to help people double their crop productivity by using less seeds, less water, no chemical fertilizers, no chemicals for pesticides either, and yet trying to get them to double their productivity. This is called the system of crop intensification. We do a lot of work on micro watersheds development. Drought proofing has been a major activity, and conservation of traditional water harvesting structures. Now that one is in red, and the reason it is in red is because that activity has been supported in the past by the International Service Society and the Vaishnava Center for Enlightenment. So in any of these slides, when you see red, you know that International Service Society has something to do with it. The second group at PSI is the Disaster Mitigation and Response Group. Most of the time they are engaged in post-disaster reconstruction. So reconstruction of houses, reconstruction of people's lives and livelihoods. We've done work since 1991 on almost every earthquake that has taken place in that area. The work in Gujarat and Kashmir was supported by ISS. We've done a lot of training of masons for earthquake-safe housing construction, again with the support of ISS. And something that we learned from a government effort in Latur was the construction of temporary shelters. After a person's house has been destroyed, they don't rebuild the new house instantly, so they need a place to stay. They might end up staying there for a year, 2 years, while the new house is being built, in which case they need these temporary shelters, and we've now done temporary shelters in different parts of the country using different types of materials. We do a lot of work on drought proofing in the desert as well as the semi-arid regions, and we do studies on hydrology including flood control. The third group is the Environmental Quality Monitoring Group, and this is the bunch of people at PSI who work in lab coats. The rest of us don't wear lab coats. Most of their work is they get requests from people. The water in our area is dirty, people are falling sick. We tell us what is the problem, so they do a lot of water quality testing. They develop user-friendly monitoring techniques, and then they train people how to use those instruments and how to interpret the data that they generate. They've done very good work. My colleagues have done very good work on mitigating the problem of fluorosis, which is a crippling disease, and how to get people without spending much money to get safe water. Right now they are more involved with the other natural resource management group in reviving springs across the Himalayan region that have dried up. The first three groups don't have an agenda of their own. They have no program of their own. People come to them with problems and they respond to people's problems. But after we'd been working for about 15 years, we began to sense that we can see far ahead. We know what problems are coming up. We need some people at the Institute who will be working on problems of the future. So that's the last group, the innovative projects group, and they work on new technologies and social processes. Some of their work has been very pioneering. The Gram Swaraj Abhiyan is a concept to make people do their own development. They plan their own development, then they implement their own programs. You'll see some of that work today. And currently, I think the Institute took a lead in the conservation of rivers in India. Okay, so much about what we do. Now, those of you who are not very familiar with the region, well, that's the Himalayan region. The Himalayas going all the way across to the Hindu Kush mountains in the west. Okay, the dark brown region over here. There are 11 Himalayan states in India at the base of the Himalayan arc. And most of my presentation today will focus on the state of Uttarakhand where I live. That's the state of Uttarakhand, if you can see the pointer right there. And to our east is Nepal. Okay. Now I want to draw your attention to this diagram that I have here. It shows you different colors, and those are almost longitudinal regions. Each one of them is divided by a major fault in the Himalayas. Okay? And so it's like this. Many years ago, about 50 million years ago, the Indian plate came and rammed into the Asian plate. Okay? And when it did that, the Indian plate went under, but it also left major fault lines in the Eurasian plate. And through those, the Himalayan mountains emerged. Okay? So the region that is in orange is just north of what we call the main central thrust. That's the boundary between the violet and the orange region. The main central thrust is a fault zone, extremely sensitive area, lots of earthquakes, lots of landslides, and this area is where a lot of people also live, in that purple region. The population decreases when you go into the orange region. Now, as I said earlier, June 2013, 48 hours over a 3-day period, there was immense rainfall all across our state. It led to catastrophic floods and landslides, which killed a lot of people. And if you see this, my cursor is now located at a dot, which is actually the site of a major shrine of the Hindus. It's called the Kedarnath. And from there, a stream starts, which is called the Mandakini River, later joins the Ganga. And that valley bore the brunt of the devastation in June 2013. So it's called the Kedarnath tragedy. That's the Kedarnath temple. And it's during the summer season, approximately 10,000 people visit this temple, and something like 10,000 people are there to serve them. So on any given day, you are likely to find 25,000 people at a height of about 3,500 meters. There's snow all around, and I'll give you a glimpse of what happened that day. There was a lake north of the temple. It was held back by a natural dam, a dam that had been formed long ago with debris coming down the mountain slopes and just holding the water back. That dam collapsed on 17th June at about 6:45 a.m. People were still asleep in the different hotels and inns in the town. And a mass of water with enormous amount of debris that the glacier had left behind millions of years ago came hurtling down the mountain, destroyed the town of Kedarnath, destroyed the villages below, and there is a very sharp drop after the temple. The drop is approximately 2,500 meters in less than 10 kilometers. So it's almost like this. And you can imagine as it goes down, this mass of water, as it goes down, it gathers more and more momentum, more energy, takes more material with it. Okay? And it swept through at about 8 meters a second. 8 meters a second. Now just do the math for it, and it's a so much mass moving at the speed of about 25 kilometers an hour with huge mass, and it can shatter anything on the way. So downstream we saw situations like this, that the river levels rose, and it wasn't just this river. This river is a small one. It went and met a larger river, and it raise the water level over there. So at different places, this is just where the Ganga is formed. Those of you who may have been to this area, that's the town of Devprayag, and the Bhagirathi comes here, the Alaknanda comes here, and that downstream becomes the Ganga. Okay? Now you can see in the second picture, the water level is here, which is roughly there. Rose about 30 meters. Entire villages all along the way were just swept away. They disappeared. Lots of people died, animals died, livelihoods were gone because farmlands were swept away. There were major landslides, so entire villages came down the hills. You had roads blocked. The highway on the right was the highway to Kedarnath, that disappeared. Major dams and hydroelectric projects, they collapsed with all this debris coming down the mountains. Buildings, they couldn't survive either. Whether it was the one on the left is the landslide, that's a landslide, and this one lost its foundation because of the flood and collapsed. Just some numbers. Approximately 500,000 people were affected. Now remember, we are a mountain state, not very densely populated. Still about 500,000 people were affected, 4,200 villages, and the severely affected villages were 300. The number of dead and missing was put at about 6,500, though unofficial estimates were much higher, and government figures of animals lost were about 8,716. So this major disaster focused everybody's attention on the issue of climate change. Was it a freak event? Was it something that happens anyway once in 100 years or 200 years? Or is this something more serious that we need to take note of? And some of us argued that it was not a one-off event, because if you look at this part of India, the northwestern part of India and part of Pakistan, you see how many events have taken place of this kind in the last 10 years. 2005 Mumbai, 2006 Rajasthan, 2010 Indus Basin, and 2013 Uttarakhand. When we analyzed what caused this massive rainfall in a short period of time, scientists had been warning us, weather scientists had been warning us that when climate change actually takes place, when global warming does happen, these kind of events will increase in frequency. So when we analyzed the manner in which the clouds came together and dropped so much water, we found that there were great similarities. Okay? So I don't think we can dismiss this as a freak event. I think it's a clear indicator that the climate is changing. Now, just to tell you a little bit about the Himalayas and why anybody in this room should be concerned about what is happening halfway across the world. For one thing, the Himalayas, now you can see in this picture, this big arc over here, all along the north part of India, this huge arc with massive mountains rising 20,000 feet and above, they block the movement of the southwest monsoon. The southwest monsoon comes across the Indian Ocean from this side, goes up, then can't go any further because the mountains block the winds, and so they turn around and they bring rainfall to this whole region. Okay? So they control the climate of the region, and it's a region which is very densely populated. About 900 million people, probably 1 billion people by now, living in an area that's about 630 million acres. Okay? It's a very high density of population. The Himalaya Hindu Kush range, the Himalayas are here, and this is the Hindu Kush range. There's a source of 10 major rivers of Asia. You have rivers like the Yangtze River in China, Mekong, Irrawaddy, Brahmaputra, Ganga, Indus, and the Amu Darya. Major rivers all across South Asia, okay, and China. So it's a region which is why China wanted control of Tibet, because once you have control of Tibet, you have control of all these rivers. The outside of the two poles, the maximum number of glaciers in the world are in the Himalayas. So they are a storehouse of fresh water. Just in the Indian Himalayan portion, we are not counting Pakistan, we are not counting Nepal, China, all those countries. Just in the Indian Himalayan region, there are 9,575 glaciers, and they ensure that the rivers of North India receive water all year round. Most of the rivers of southern India are dry during the summer season, but not in North India. And when you have these high peaks, then all kinds of pollen, genetic material that's been flying around in the atmosphere gets trapped over there. And you have a huge variety of biodiversity in the region. So you have beautiful birds like this pheasant over here. That's our state bird. The snow leopard, one of the shyest animals in the world, a dwindling population, and we have that in our state. Then there are these flowers which we call the Brahm Kamal, orchids over here, musk deer, and for us this is a rare animal. It's called the Himalayan brown bear. And these are just in our state. I'm not counting what are there in the other Himalayan states. So, what does climate change hold for us in this region? We are told by scientists that the impacts will be more intense in the Himalayas because they are geologically sensitive and they are biologically very sensitive. There will be a rapid reduction in the glaciers, and this will lead to increased disasters when glacial lakes can burst, just like the one that I showed you earlier, and there will be landslides. But in addition to these sudden events, we will also see a lot of creeping changes, slow changes that will be taking place. As the region gets warmer, there will be plants moving up, there will be warmer animals moving up. We've done some studies, we've analyzed the weather pattern, the temperature data for the last 100 odd years, and what we are seeing is that the maximum temperatures are rising and the minimum temperatures are falling. So the weather patterns are tending towards extremes. And what we also see is that these effects are more pronounced at higher elevations or at higher latitudes. Snowfall is decreasing, and that's a cause of immense worry because snow is what really feeds the rivers all year round. And snowfall, this range that I have shown here, in my childhood, we never saw the bare rock. Now we see it. We hardly see any snow there. We see that the glaciers are retreating. That's the source of the main stream of the Ganga, the Bhagirathi. And this is the snout, it comes out of there. But if you look at this picture, in 1780, that's where the snout was. In 1935, it came to this point. Then now it's over here roughly. In 2000, it's here. So the rate of recession of this glacier has been increasing over the years. But there is some news recently that the rate of recession in the last 10 years may be declining. So that's some hopeful sign. It will lead to extreme events like the kind that I showed you: floods, droughts, avalanches, glacial lake outbursts, and threaten wildlife, domestic animals, and human beings. Now, when you have this kind of flood, nothing survives, and yet river after river is going to face this threat. Now, this is the main arm of the Ganga coming out of that snout that you just saw, and there will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 dams in about 300 kilometers. Every 25 kilometers there is a dam. That's the plan. People have stalled these plans. People are upset. They don't want all these dams. Only 3 have been constructed, 4 have been constructed so far. The rest are now stalled. There will be an impact on the Himalayan plants. We are already seeing a decrease in the productivity of apples in the neighboring state of Himachal Pradesh. The apple plant doesn't get as cold as it should get. You see more male flowers appearing before the female flowers. This affects their productivity. We also see the effects in the forests, and this is a rhododendron. We don't have rhododendron bushes, we have rhododendron trees. And we are seeing that these flowers are beginning to bloom something like 2 months before their normal time. As temperature warms up and the rainfall is higher, then there will be probably more mosquitoes at higher elevations and more diseases in the area. Okay, so I think what we'll do is we'll take our break at this point. Okay, thank you. Sure.
We'll start with the hungriest table first. With the people in the back.
Okay, I hope you can pay some attention here and that the food goes into your mouth rather than somewhere else. Now this is a map, an outline map of our state, and what you will see here is, let me see, yeah, this is that main central thrust, okay? And it goes through the northern districts of the state. A district in India is about the size of a county in this country. So our state has 4 districts in the southern part, 1, 2, 3, and part of this, that is 4. This is basically the foothills of the Himalayas, not very elevated, somewhat plains region, and the rest of the state is mountainous. The region beyond this main central thrust has got a lot of glaciers, it's got a lot of glacial sediments, and the region in a range of about 5 to 10 kilometers is very sensitive, geologically prone to landslides and earthquakes. Now the worst affected districts in that flood, this district Uttarkashi, Rudraprayag, this is where that Kedarnath temple is, Chamoli, Pithoragarh, and a small district of Bageshwar. These 5 northern districts were the worst affected during the 2013 disaster, and all of them are north of the main central thrust. The main central thrust goes through them. So the question arises, why were these districts more affected and not the southern districts? Okay? One major reason is that development planning in India did not factor in climate change. Okay? This is high mountain country. You're talking of elevations that might begin around 1500 meters and go up to about 4,000, 5,000, 6,000, 7,000 meters. Okay. It's also a pattern of development that does not take into consideration the local specific environmental characteristics. The model of development that is followed in our state is the same as it is followed anywhere else in India. So whether you are in a desert, whether you are on a mountaintop, whether you are on the coastline or on the central plateau, it's the same pattern of development in which the engine of growth is going to be industrialization. Now, this is another very interesting picture that we have here. That Kedarnath is up this way, and that river came hurtling down like this. This riverbed that you see now is strewn with all the sediments and boulders and rocks that came with the river. That riverbed is 35 meters above the riverbed earlier. There was a dam that was planned at this point, somewhere around here. That dam has been buried. How does this happen? See, these are glacial valleys. Okay? That's a small stream. It's called the Kheer Ganga, and it comes through a glacial valley. The glacier receded millions of years ago, but left behind a lot of debris and sediments and rocks and boulders. Now and this is on the backside of the Kedarnath, interestingly. So when the rain fell, so much water collected here that the river was swollen. It began to move all those sediments and solid material. As it moved, every now and then it blocks the path of the river, creates a small natural dam. The force of the water breaks the dam, and the water rushes forth with even greater momentum and force and energy. And this river, this tiny river, you can see, right now you can barely see the river. Okay? But that night, on the 16th of June, it was a raging, huge, massive river. And the Ganga was flowing over here, like this. Okay? It literally pushed the Ganga. It pushed a huge river. And mind you, the Ganga is also coming down a steep slope, bringing its own load of debris. So what happens is that there was a dam over here in the path of the Ganga. So this stream is coming from here, it pushes the Ganga on this side. There's a dam which you can't see now. It's buried under this debris. In this portion here, there was a national highway, there was the company's offices, there were the helipad of the company. Everything got swept away. So when the river couldn't flow through its normal course, the Ganga couldn't flow like this. It began to flow on this side. It cut all the soft material until it hit a rock over there. There was a big granite type of material up ahead. Since it couldn't wash that away, then it swung to the right. And that's what rivers do. In such situations, they swing wildly from one side to the other, and then it took away a whole township and market and bus station. Lots of people lost their lives at this point. Now, the third cause for all this is the massive deforestation that has been going on in this mountain state. We have lost something like 30,000 hectares to all kinds of development projects like roads, dams, tunnels that have been built in this area in the last 15 years. And they are all in these same 5 districts. On top of all that was the problem of poor governance. there was actually a weather alert. The meteorological officer of the state alerted the government a few days before the disaster, said that on the 13th he sent an urgent message saying that there's likely to be extremely heavy rainfall in this area. Please stop all the pilgrims. Make sure that nobody goes up to that region. But his call was heeded by some officials locally, but the state government didn't do much about it. So, when you have a disaster like this, the poor are always the ones who are hurt the most. Now, if you look at this chart that I compiled using state data, this is the average gross domestic product per capita in our state, roughly 60,000 rupees per annum. 1, 2, 3, 4 southern districts well above the average. Only one mountain district, Chamoli, makes it above the average, not much, and all the other mountain districts, the other 8 districts, are well below the state average. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, and that was the 5th of the 5 worst affected districts. Our state has had a good rate of growth after it became a separate state. The green line is our state, and it's well above the other comparisons that I put down on this chart. So the rate of growth was very good, but it was all concentrated in the 4 southern districts. The mountain districts didn't get much benefit of this development. And that comes out in this set of bar charts. If you look at the primary production sector, which is agriculture, forestry, and allied activities, then you find that its contribution, its share of the gross domestic product drops from 40% to about 11% between 91 and 2011. Manufacturing sector goes up a little bit, goes up by about 50%, and then the big jump is in the services sector. The tourism, the banking, the service industry goes up. And therefore, you find that the people who live in the 9 mountain districts, who are mainly farmers, 69% are farmers, 66% are farmers, and about 3.5% are laborers. So about 70% of the people are dependent on agriculture in the northern districts, and the rest work to service the tourist industry. But in the southern districts, it's the service sector that gets most of the people are employed in. Very few people are employed in agriculture. And so what happens? In essence, the main activity in the mountain areas is agriculture. There's no investment in agriculture. The state has not invested in agriculture. So what does a farmer do? Give up hope and migrate. And this is reflected in the population growth figures. Again, the state average is almost 20%, 19.2%. Population growth in the last decade. 4 southern districts well above the average growth rate, and all the mountain districts well below the state average. These 2 districts are the only 2 districts in the entire country where the decadal population has actually fallen. The absolute population has fallen. There is such high migration out of those 2 districts. So while we had our intermission, someone asked me, well, how do we get out of this mess? What do we do? Okay, so here's my prescription on what we do. The first thing forests are the backbone of any mountain region. You have mountain region without forests, that mountain region, if it has soil, if it's in trouble, the soil will slide. So the first thing is to ensure that these slopes are reforested. And one of the good things about afforestation is that the benefits start to flow fairly quickly, and they are always increasing. The government has created the Forest Rights Act. It has provided funds through various schemes, but it's hard today to get people to grow forests because they don't have ownership. The forests belong to the state. So the people say, well, if they belong to the state, let the state take care of it. Therefore, I argue wherever I go that community ownership of natural resources is essential. Otherwise, they are not going to take care of their natural resources. Second, if you've taken care of the forests, you've created a major resource for fodder. Once you have fodder, you can feed your animals, you get the dung, you put it into your fields become more productive without putting in chemical fertilizers. So, since most of the people in the mountain region are farmers, therefore the second thing is to promote mountain agriculture. And as I said earlier, we know there are new knowledge which makes it possible for a farmer, even in these areas, and we've worked with about 50,000 farmers a year at times, where using less seeds, less water, no fertilizers, chemical fertilizers, no chemical pesticides, which means fewer costs, higher productivity. So this is what we need in this area. The third, there's a whole bunch of, besides agriculture, there's so many ecologically safe livelihoods that are available. We've experimented with fodder and dairy development, very good returns. Horticulture, floriculture, weaving quality fabrics. There are a lot of sheep and goat in this area. Then upgrading traditional skills. But the youths are not interested in those traditional occupations. They want to be with the times. So for them we are saying assembly, marketing, repair of mobile phones, solar lamps, solar panels. All this is interestingly going on at an experimental stage outside of the government. Little small projects are there which are showing the viability of these things. We are considering establishing business BPOs, business processing outsource cells in this area. And of course, community-based tourism. What I've shown you in this picture, this is a homestay where you can go and stay with that family. They'll provide you with room and board, and also a good knowledgeable guide about that area who can take you out on treks. So all these are possible, but building appropriate institutions in the villages is what holds the key to whether it succeeds or not. We need safer infrastructure. All of us use electricity. We can't be hypocrites and say we don't want dams, but can we do it more safely and in a sustainable manner? The problem with that suggestion is then it means that you will produce less electricity, but you can use it more efficiently. Okay? We can make green roads, costs more, the costs go up, but then lives are saved. We can have earthquake safe construction. This building that you see here, it's made of mud, stones and wood, everything found in the local area. It's a 5-storied building. It has withstood the earthquake. In fact, these are a couple of my colleagues who had gone there in 91 after an earthquake, and they saw this building standing and they were stunned because the newer houses had collapsed. Then there's a lot of tourism in our state, but it's focused on 5 locations which have shrines, religious shrines. And 4 of them are located at elevations of 3,500 meters or so. That's a very remote area. And when you have people now accessing some of these places by car, some of them by plane, by helicopters, you are upsetting the local environment. And what we are saying is that, look, the whole state is full of very interesting scenic locations, lots of locations where there's very pretty wildlife. There's so much to see in that state. Why can't we disperse the tourism? Why can't we have homestays instead of 5-star hotels? Okay? So we are also asking the government that certain forests in India have been protected for conserving biodiversity. Why don't you also protect some of the stretches, pristine stretches of the rivers? Those also are scenic locations. They can also attract tourists. Okay? So these are some ideas, and of course on top of all this, because we are a disaster prone state, we have to be prepared for disasters. Our state disaster management agency, in its first 9 years of existence, did not have a single meeting. Okay? They were supposed to prepare a state disaster management plan. There was none. People don't want to even work on this issue of community-based disaster preparedness. And that's what some of my colleagues and I were doing for many years, working with the local communities and saying, look, you are living in a very, very sensitive area. You better learn how to be prepared during a disaster and before a disaster. Okay. And I think the place to start a lot of these things is with the younger people, with the school children. So, these are my conclusions. The gentleman who asked me what are my solutions. Ecological sustainable development is a basic necessity. The development has to be equitable, otherwise the poor people have no resources to sustain themselves after a disaster. This can only happen if there is decentralized government and community ownership of natural resources. The threat of climate change has to be factored into development planning. We cannot have the same model for the plains and the mountains. And the Himalayan states, all of them, have to be in a state of constant preparation. Okay. What are we doing about it? Okay, so all this was nice science and so on, but did we do anything after the disaster? Living in that state and working with the people, we could not stay away from intervening. So about a day after the disaster, we created this timetable for ourselves. We said we'll do 1 month of relief work, 6 months we'll work on helping people build temporary shelters, and then we'll pick some areas where livelihood restoration work is needed. So there's one of my colleagues crossing that horrible river which was so swollen, all the bridges across that river had broken. So you couldn't go to the other side except by setting up these ropeways. So we had to carry the relief supplies on the backs on the ropeways. So that was quite a difficult task. These are the kinds of temporary shelters that we build. This is for 3 or 4 families together. That's a single family shelter. It's only 170 square feet. And we have provided, in many of them, we've provided this efficient wood stove. We provided toilets and bathrooms for these temporary shelters. our experience in the past has been that some families have used the temporary shelters as a second home. So when the son gets married, told you go live over there. And these shelters have lasted for 8 or 9 years. Now, after we had done this work, we selected 3 very remote valleys where we knew nobody is going to go there. The last village in the valley, we have to reach there. In one of the valleys, the only way you can reach the last village is to trek up 9 kilometers on a mountain path. Can you imagine carrying all your supplies on your back 9 kilometers? So the starting point was, we called this program the Gram Swaraj Abhiyan, Campaign for Village Republics. Okay? Let them be self-reliant, let them be independent. And we started with a whole bunch of young colleagues who were just joining our organization, and we picked up some local agencies, community-based organizations, and we said we'll train you. Okay? First thing to do is to go to the villages, get the people together, ask them what is their dream, what do they think means development, what's the meaning of development, ask them, and then bring them together to prepare their own development plan. Forget this national 5-year plan, you make your own 5-year plan. Okay, so they made 3-year plans, and this is one of those exercises that's going on. This lady, this is what we call social or resource maps. People make these maps on the floor that gives them an idea, not where, what resources, that they already know, but more than that, who has access to what resource. Everything is done in the open. There are no secrets in this planning. And then after this, people get together, they put out all the information that they have. Then we help them with an analysis. And after the analysis, village meetings are held, all the data is put before them, the analyzed data, and they are asked, okay, now what you told us means this. If you want to earn 45,000 rupees per annum more, then maybe you should be doing poultry farming. Poultry might give you that kind of a return. If you just do paddy farming, it's not going to give you that much money. Okay? So people expressed all kinds of ideas. We have this landslide. We want to control this landslide. Well, our engineers went out, came back and said, these landslides, Himalayan landslides, I don't think we can handle them. But maybe the government can. So a delegation of the villagers goes to the government and says, what can you do for us? See, the starting point is to bring them together. Individually, they all feel helpless. They come together and collectively they begin to get more confident. Okay, so the village development plans are finalized after a meeting like this. In the meantime, we are training all kinds of people, farmers, women, young youth, men and women, and we are training them in some of the new concepts. For example, the system of crop intensification. They don't know it, we'll train them. Okay? That's a nursery, fodder plantation, put together by a women's group in this village. Okay? And in the rainy season, you see all the women have their own organization now, and there they are going to plant all those fodder trees. Fodder trees are critical. A woman, a village woman in the mountains, loves her cows as much as her sons and daughters. She will not eat until she has fed the cows. She knows that the cow is going to give me dung, and the dung is going to make my vegetables and my crops grow. So she worships the cow, and therefore we have formed women's groups in all the 25 villages, and they are into this fodder development program. And that's where you see the trained young people. This is one of my colleagues trying to figure out whether there can be intercropping over here. That's a paddy plantation, and they want to see whether there's intercropping. So I just included some of these slides to show you that the ideas that I put down earlier as being ecologically sound livelihood opportunities, we are actually making them happen. Okay? I think that's the last slide. Thank you. Okay. So if you have questions, I'll try to answer them. Take a 5-minute rest, okay?
We are well ahead on our schedule, so I'd like to share some insights about ISS work. He showed you the work of Himalaya after the Uttarakhand disaster. Now there is another tragedy. You all heard of Nepal earthquake. And it's a tragic story. We've raised $50,000, but can't spend it. Can you guess why we can't spend the money? See, in Nepal, the community is the action-oriented organization, but there is no formal organization. If you give us money and we give it to community that's not registered, that we don't know who they are, I can't send money to them. So I decided to send money to People Science Institute. People Science Institute is based in India. And even though India did a lot of work in Nepal, the Prime Minister bragged about it. So Nepalese got very upset. So the relationship got strained. But Indian law does not permit an Indian organization to work outside of the country. So they said, okay, you apply for permission, and within 2 days we'll give you permission. Our application has been pending for months, and no permission has come. And donors are asking me, what did you do with our money? I'm just holding it. So there are a lot of technical problems. We have supported ESI and other organizations. Orissa, in Bengal, in Gujarat, in Maharashtra, in Bihar. The principle of Gandhian self-reliance is the center of everything we do. Another activity a group called New Global Freedom does for the last 20 years or more is we have training camps for young people who come from all over the country at their own expense. They pay for their own room and board. They go back to their community and put in practice what they have learned. Usually, Dr. Chopra's organization sends 1 or 2 people to a training camp. In Uttarakhand and Himachal Pradesh, his workers came and learned the scientific rice intensification methods, which will give you up to 5-fold increase in production with virtually zero cost. And within a few years, they trained 100,000 farmers to convert from non-organic to organic farming of rice cultivation. Just imagine the terrific impact they've had. A lot of people in India ask me what I do in America. A lot of people in America ask me what I do in India. So what I do is not easy to put in words, but you can see it in Dr. Chopra's presentation. My own family members think I'm wasting money, I'm wasting time when I should be doing something to make more money and then donate. There has to be some limit somewhere. But I'm very happy to tell you that one of my very close members of the family told that I'm doing noble work, not my own statement. I also share my skills of secrets of success. And just month of August, we had 15 people from different parts of the United States spend 2 days here at Kellogg Center and learn how to become more effective in achieving their goal. I'd like to ask Miriam David to come up and tell us how that seminar helped you. She's from Ypsilanti. Yes.
So I just had a fundraiser for my personal massage practice. I let it be 30 days. It was a crowdfunding campaign, so it's based online. And I went to a seminar with 2 days left in the campaign, and I decided that, well, I learned that it was pretty silly that I hadn't called anybody on the phone. So I made about 15 or 20 phone calls and raised about $700 more, so it was about $1,500 in all. And it was just, 2 days and some simple concepts that really gave me a good idea. So one of the concepts was to ask for double what you want. So I asked for, $100 from each person. And I was selling, it was sort of a campaign for a discounted massage. So people were getting something pretty awesome as well, a massage for themselves or a loved one. And also to send the donor a telepathic message before you. And the third thing was the specific phrasing used, I want you to donate $100 to my campaign, So those three things really helped.
I tell my students that these techniques don't work on me. I also like to ask Mr. Peter Sheldon, he's one of the top 10 or 11 lawyers in America, to say why he regularly donates to International Service Society.
Well, as I was mentioning to Mayu, other table guests, I've been practicing law now for 50 years. And when I really reflect back on those 50 years, the most satisfaction I've gotten from servicing clients is in the nonprofit charitable sector. You get a lot more satisfaction here that means a lot more than the dollars that come in from getting fees from other clients. And International Service Society and VCE, the Schneva Center for Enlightenment, are just two of those nonprofit organizations that do wonderful kinds of things to help people who need the help. And I'm very happy to support it to the extent I can and look forward to doing it for years to come.
I don't want to take a lot of time. Dr. Chopra is ready to answer your questions. Anybody have any questions that you can ask? William.
So, I have actually, it's a kind of a unique question. It might not apply to everybody, but I'm curious if you've heard of the Warriors Without Weapons program.
Warriors Without Weapons program.
Or the Elos Institute in Brazil, because they just sound, the philosophy and the way that you're doing things sounds very familiar, and I'm just curious if there's any connection or it's just...
No, I haven't heard of them so far. But tonight when I go home, there'll be a Google search. It's like these two young ladies who are sitting here, and their professor, Dr. Joan Rose, I saw somebody sent me, hey, have you heard of this lady? And she does this kind of work, working on water quality and sourcing. What is the source of the contaminants that come into our water? We do some of that work, but it sounded far more impressive than our work does. And I immediately did a Google search, checked out Professor Rose, and called Sri Kumar and said, I'm coming to Lansing and this lady is in Lansing. Can you try and arrange for a meeting with her? So I had a very nice meeting with her, and we hope to do some work together in the future if we can organize it. So Google search helps. Any other questions? Yes.
When you say we, how many people are involved in the work that you're doing to reconstruct these, as well as the villagers and so on? But how many people are you, engineers, government, and so on, along with the people of the villages, are engaged in doing the reforestation and so on?
Okay. At our institute, we are a small team of about 40 people. 40 plus or minus 5, that's our normal size. Out of which I would imagine about 32 people are professional scientists, engineers, or social workers. When we do work in these places, the 25 villages in the remote valleys, we also try and identify local organizations, and we take them on board. By working with them, we are essentially creating local talent, because we will leave after a few years, they will stay on. So if you count the field teams, we may go up to about 75 or 80 people. Then in each village that we work, we create several local community-based organizations. Organizations of women, organizations of farmers, organizations of tree growers, etc., etc. In the 25 villages, I think there are almost 2,100 families that we are working with. So approximately 10,000 people or more. And you can be rest assured that each one of those families somehow or the other is involved in doing some activity. Okay? So that gives you an idea of how we work. Collective strength.
What is the medical part of it? How do you take care of the health part? Anything going on for that?
On the medical side, the best medicine that I know of is don't fall sick. No, we don't do much work. We don't do any work on medicine. But in this particular case, in the last 2 years, we've been finding out more about medicinal herbs and traditional medical practices in the area. And we are encouraging people to grow those herbs so that their local doctors can treat them. Other than that, sorry, medicine is not our forte. Yes?
First of all, I thank you for giving us such a vast level of information that even though I read newspaper and listen to news, hardly this much of information was available to me, especially about my own country. So thank you for that. My question to you is, the dam building in that area, you discussed in one of the slides, you said that they have a program of building 9 dams around, and they have built only 4. What's your comment on that? Is this going to help actually, or is going to create more climatic problems?
Okay. In 2013, the Supreme Court of India asked the Ministry of Environment and Forests to appoint an expert body to study the issue of the impact of dams on the environment of the state, Uttarakhand, and whether they had aggravated the impact of the disaster. I don't know why, but somebody made me the chairman of that body. There was a lot of opposition. The dam builders did not want me. But what we learned was that dams in the mountain region have significantly contributed to environmental degradation, that they were responsible for severely aggravating the impact of the disaster. Okay? And we based it on field studies, scientific literature, talking to local people. Okay? Now, after all this, I believe that our dams are not properly planned. The focus is more on building the dam. Actually, people don't even care whether they'll generate power afterwards or not. Okay? The money is to be made in building the dam. Okay? And it's all illegal money, which then gets shared by the developer, by the bureaucrats, by the politicians, and the local contractors. Who pays the price? The local people. When the dam breaks, then they pay the price. In this disaster, 25 small and big dams either broke or were very severely damaged. Some of them are still not functional. All of them, except for 2 of them, are still not functional. Like I showed you that picture where the dam is buried underneath the debris. So, my answer is that if the local people have to benefit, then we do need small dams, and they can feed the local communities. They're not large. They'll not generate more than 2,000 or 3,000 megawatts. The state has plans to generate about 27,000 megawatts. Now the 27,000 megawatts is going to be a major problem. Okay. So, if we want to promote the conventional development, you want those big dams. If you want a more ecologically safe and equitable development, then you don't need those big dams. More and more, fortunately, more and more people are going for rooftop solar energy, which is why we are also trying to promote the young people to learn how to assemble solar panels and put them up on the roofs. Peter.
You mentioned dams. Is there resistance toward that working as community and the self-sufficiency and working with nature? Do you find much resistance from governments or corporations or others?
In our state, the state has plans to, or had plans to build 450 dams. Okay? It doesn't have the money, so it invites private companies to come and build the dams. So the companies and the state are one on this. Local communities which suffer, they oppose the dams. And this has been going on for the last almost 4 decades now. Both the sides have sharpened their techniques. But the major anti-dam campaign in our state was the Teri Dam campaign, led by a gentleman named Sundarlal Bahuguna, a follower of Gandhi. He led that campaign, but the Teri Dam got built. Now, once the new campaign started in 2008 against this 450 dams program, the only dams that are getting built are the small ones. So far, since 2008, only 3 old dams have been completed, the bigger ones. There's no new dam that is coming up. All the cases are in the courts. Yeah, I'll take 1, 2, and there was a hand up this side. Okay.
With these rivers, are there fisheries that have been destroyed, and are you looking at, in the sustainable plans, any aquaculture?
Fish population does get decimated because typically in our region, we are no longer building huge, massive dams like the Grand Teton Dam. We are going in for barrages. And what you do is that river is flowing, you put a barrage over here, the water level rises, put it into a tunnel, take the tunnel straight through the mountain and drop it 10 or 20 kilometers later at the powerhouse. So you get a nice drop. Power is amount of water flowing times the height of the drop. So the stretch between the dam and the powerhouse goes completely dry. No water is released in that stretch. And that stretch could be 10 kilometers, 20 kilometers, 25 kilometers. And sometimes there's one dam after the other. So where the powerhouse of one dam comes in, a kilometer later is another dam. Where the powerhouse of that dam comes in, a kilometer later is another dam. So the whole river gets reduced into a series of ponds connected by tunnels. Okay. So the entire aquatic biota is finished. There are no diatoms, there are no small microinvertebrates, therefore there won't be macroinvertebrates, there will not be any fish. Okay? So that's a major problem. And you can't always breed all kinds of fish through aquaculture. So far the government programs on aquaculture have not been successful. We haven't tried it. Yes.
In context of global warming, what is the current estimate for lifespan of these glaciers, Himalayan glaciers?
Okay. The lifespan of the glaciers is variable. The old report that they were going to disappear in 35 years was nonsense, and none of us who work in the field believed it. Now, the estimates are that they'll certainly last for a few hundred years, but that's not a general statement. Glaciers that are in the western part of the Indian Himalayas are melting faster than those in the eastern part. Glaciers that are smaller are disappearing faster than glaciers that are large. But you know, out of those 9,575 glaciers, only 10 have been studied. Only 10 studies exist. So there's a lot more to learn. In the western Himalayas, glaciers are very critical because they are the source of water for irrigation. And since that's a cold desert area above Kashmir, Ladakh and so on, or Lahore and Spiti, they are totally dependent on those glaciers for their irrigation. So in those kind of places, they are very critical.
I have the follow-up question. You answered it very nicely about what dam can do and actually more damage it can bring. If you have to give a suggestion to government of India, what would you suggest them to do?
Okay. I give them lots of suggestions, they don't take them. You know, the report that we produced for the Supreme Court, the ministry refuses to put it on the website. Anyway, see, very honestly, if you ask me, the era of dams is over. Dams are a technology up to the last century. In this country, you're not building dams, you're taking them down. Are these people mad? They're not mad. They know what those dams can do and what they can't do. And you know, it's described as renewable energy. But it's also got a whole set of problems. And in the Himalayan region, the problems are more acute because our mountains are young, they are fragile, they don't have, you know, it's not granitic rock. Okay? So, in the Himalayan region, I would say, don't build dams that are more than 2 megawatts. If you are desperate, go build a 5 megawatt dam. But then you can't build a 5 megawatt dam on a Ganga. Ganga has too much water. Okay? So you have to leave Ganga flowing. Second, if you are desperate and you are definitely going to build a dam, then make sure that you release enough water so that the river can perform its natural functions. Okay? So it must have enough water flowing in the river all the time. And I'm very happy to tell you that 2008, when the government appointed a high-level expert group to go into how much water should be flowing in the Ganga all the time, the engineers were not willing to give more than a cubic. Do you know how much is a cubic? 1 cubic meter per second. So now just imagine 1 meter by 1 meter, 1 meter per second. Okay? It's a nice size carton. And to reduce a big river like the Ganga to a little pipe, it is desecration. So, today, the Ministry of Environment and Forest is finally coming round to the view that at any given time, at least 25 to 30% of the water in the river must be allowed to flow all the time. We are not happy with it, but it's a big jump. Okay?
Thank you.
There's built a very large dam called Narmada Dam. A lot of people have heard of the opposition of people. Still it has built it. What's the result of that dam?
One result is that we have Mr. Narendra Modi as our Prime Minister. Look, the Narmada Dam was built. Now, first of all, let me confess that I am not really very well up on the Narmada. I have been focused on the Himalayan region. But from what little I know, the Narmada Dam was made acceptable by making two kinds of promises. One, that the people in the arid zone of Gujarat and Rajasthan would receive water. And two, that all the displaced people would be properly rehabilitated. That's not happening. There is very little of the promised rehabilitation going on. Even the courts have given up. The courts are tired of pushing the state. And the water has not reached the arid zone. instead, those of you, how many people here from Ahmedabad? Have you been home recently? And you walked along the promenade of the Sabarmati? So the water of the Narmada, instead of going to the desert region, has been quietly diverted to Ahmedabad to revive the Sabarmati river. So I think the promises have been broken even in that area.
Dr. Chopra, with your close ties to East Lansing and Michigan State University, have you done anything collaboratively in the past or are planning to do something with the university? Because I know they have a lot of scientists who are interested in some of the things you're doing.
Yeah, you know, Michigan State University is one of your big agricultural universities. And we were basically engineers until a professor came from Cornell University to tell us about the system of crop intensification. So in the past, we did not have any collaboration over here, but as I mentioned earlier, I hope that in the future we can collaborate with their Professor Rose on water quality issues. So I think we are done.
I have to tell you something.
Go ahead.
Yesterday's Dr. Raju said that I observed Ravi and Dr. Ross, and I was telling him we were doing puja, and I told him, today I'm going to go buy Ganpati for the Ganesh Chaturthi coming up. And he said, no, Mayu, we are not going to buy Ganpati this time. So I said, why? So he says, yesterday he heard, and those murtis have so much chemicals and the colors and all that, and then you will say, let's go and drop it in the river. So I'm supposed to now take a haldi, make a roll bowl, and think as a Ganpati. So Dr. Raj had me affect right away on me about his talk.
Okay. Good.
So I now, for many, many years I've been buying Ganpati, I would say more than 37 years. And this is the first time I'm not going to buy the Ganpati now. I just wanted my Indian friends to know.
I think it's a good idea. I think it's a very good idea.
Good. So thank you all very much for listening to me patiently.
Still have some more get out of jail free cards. I'll be standing in the back, but we're still within our time limit. There's 5 minutes. So I'd like to invite Bharatiya Temple priest Surendra Bharadwaj, or Shastriji as we call him, and he will give blessings to all of us in PSI and Vaishnava Center in his official capacity as representative of Bharati Temple. This is the second time they are endorsing our work. So, Shastriji has a very nice poem that he would like to read, which Arun Kumar will translate.
Well, they need some passes.
You can translate that. Huh?
Please come. Om Bhadram Karne Vishnuyama Devaha Bhadram Pashyemakshirbhiryajatraha Sthirairangai Sustuvagam Sastanubihi Vyashema Devahitam Yadayuhu. Namaste. Thank you for your patience. You listen to me no more than 3 minutes, please. आज डॉक्टर रवि चोपड़ा जी ने आप लोगों को बहुत अच्छा ज्ञान दिया रवि मीन्स सूर्य, सूर्य का प्रकाश हुआ, मैं ऐसा कह सकता हूँ। आज विशेष रूप से मैं शिव कुमार जी को भी बधाई देता हूँ। टुडे इज शिव कुमार जी 75th बर्थडे, स्पेशल बर्थडे। वैष्णव जन तो तेने कहिए, जो पीर पर आई जाने दे। इनका वैष्णव सेंटर बहुत अच्छे काम कर रहा है, और वैष्णव जन तो उसे कहते हैं जो दूसरों की पीर कष्ट दूर करे। तो वैष्णव सेंटर और शिव कुमार जी बहुत अच्छे काम कर रहे हैं। मैं 4 लाइनें इनके लिए आप लोगों को सुनाना चाहता हूँ। बन सहारा बेसहारों के लिए, बन सहारा बेसहारों के लिए, बन किनारा बेकिनारों के लिए, जो जिए अपने लिए तो क्या जिए, जी सके तो जी हजारों के लिए।
His name is Sri Surendra Shastri. He is our priest in local Hindu temple. And basically, he is praising the speaker, Dr. Ravi Chopra. Ravi is his first name. Is also called to sun. Say, in Hindi, we call Surya, and there is a different name of Surya. So Ravi is one of them. So he was praising him that he has that glory, he has that light that he can probably spread throughout the world. He also wished a happy birthday to Sri Kumar Podarji. Let's give him a big hand. See, in a way he surprised us with 2 things. Quietly kept your birthday unnoticed, and you gave us such a knowledgeable thing to learn today. And then actually he is telling a poem to his organization, which is Vaishnavas. Huh? Yes, so he was sitting and enjoying this, and he composed these 4 lines. And I will try to just give you the short version of it. Means you become a help to others. Don't always try to think what other people they will do for me. Rather, you go and do things for others. Like we heard from attorney, and there are many other people, they do. My next door sitting, she was telling me how she is helpful in her own community by spreading the vegetable herbs. So that's the way he looks at, Shastriji looks at this organization is trying to do the best work for the humanity. And also he's saying that we all should do that individually, and when we do that, it fulfills our human quest, why we are here. So it's a very nice way to bless all of us. Thank you, Shastriji.
वित्तस्य तीसरा गतयः, धन की केवल 3 ही गति है, दानम भोगो नाशः। पहली गति है दान करो, दूसरी गति है भोग करो, तीसरी गति है नाश। तो जीवन में 2 गतियाँ सर्वश्रेष्ठ हैं, उनको ही करना चाहिए। और मुझे इंग्लिश का एक वर्ड आता है, यूज इट और लूज इट। तो प्लीज यूज कर रहे हैं, यूज नहीं कर रहे हैं।
He speaks English a little broken. Oh, you see, our life is enriched when we share what we have. When you have a knowledge, share your knowledge. You have money, share your money. You have a good health, go and just do some more work so people they can see that you are vibrant. And basically, his idea is that when we assemble here, we should always remember that our life is for others.
धन की 3 ही गति है, दान करो, भोग करो, नहीं तो नाश हो।
So he's saying that if you have money, you have 3 things. Whether you use it,
First thing, दान करो।
but also give to others, share, donation.
First
share
is
with
donation.
others.
If
you don't do these 2 things,
then
just
use.
will keep.
भोग करो, use करो।
Yeah, if you don't, after third one,
नाश।
nash. Means if you don't do these 2 things, noble things, don't use it, don't share it, it's just going to go west. Probably it will be taken away.
Don't waste. Now I pray for all. Sarve bhavantu sukhinah, sarve santu niramaya, sarve bhadrani pashyantu ma kaschit dukhabhag hoya. हे ईश सब सुखी हो, कोई न हो दुखारी, सब हो निरोग भगवन धन धान्य के भंडारी, दुखिया न कोई हो वे सृष्टि में प्राणधारी, सौभद्र भाव देखे सन्मार्ग के पति को। ओम शांति शांति शांति।
That was the final Sanskrit Vedic mantra.
सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः, सब सुखी हो।
Everybody go home, have peace, be happy.
सर्वे संतु निरामया, सब निरोगी हो।
And everybody should go in good health and live health, good health.
सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु, सबका अच्छा मंगल और कल्याण हो।
And may God give you all the best thing that you wish.
माँ कश्चित दुख भाग हुए, संसार में कोई भी दुखी ना हो।
And his final wish is, let be nobody sad or miserable in this world ever.
Now I pray for all. सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः, सर्वे सन्तु निरामया, सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु मा कश्चित् दुःखभाग् भवेत्। हे ईश सब सुखी हो, कोई न हो दुखारी, सब हो निरोग भगवन धन धान्य के भंडारी, दुखिया न कोई हो वे सृष्टि में प्राणधारी, सौभद्र भाव देखे सन्मार्ग के पति को। ओम शांति शांति शांति।
That was the final Sanskrit Vedic mantra.
सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः, सब सुखी हो।
Everybody go home, have peace, be happy.
सर्वे सन्तु निरामया, सब निरोगी हो।
And everybody should go in good health and live health, good health.
सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु, सबका अच्छा मंगल और कल्याण हो।
And may God give you all the best thing that you wish.
माँ कश्चित् दुःख भाग हुए, संसार में कोई भी दुखी ना हो।
And his final wish is, let be nobody sad or miserable in this world ever.
शांति शांति शांति।
So peace, peace and peace.
Thank you. God bless all of you.
Stay with me. Thank